Hello, beautiful brown girl family. Welcome to our special episode of Brown Girl Boss, our Brown Girl Mental Health panel. Before we get started, I do want to make sure that all of you are pumped and primed and poised to get all of the information that we are going to be sharing tonight. So, as we always do here at Beautiful Brown Girls, if you will go ahead and start introducing yourselves in the comments, let me know where you are watching from. Also, let me know what you are looking forward to tonight. Like, why are you here? What are you looking to gain from this time that we are here together? I also want you to let me know if this is your very first time hanging out with us on Beautiful Brown Girls TV. I love to celebrate our first timers. So go ahead and let me know that. Also, go ahead and tag some of your friends. Tonight, we are talking about mental health. Everything is about mental health and really taking care of ourselves. So, if you know people that need to be in this space, go ahead and tag them right now and share the broadcast on your page so that other people in your network can see what you're doing tonight and they'll also be able to join us. Okay. So I see you all coming in and introducing yourselves. I'm going to do some shout outs in just a second. So again, as you are introducing yourselves, let me know where you're watching from. And also let me know what you're looking forward to getting out of this time that we're spending together. Okay, so drop that into the comments for me. Also tag your friends, share the broadcast, and let me know if this is your very first time hanging out on BBG TV. If you are here all the time with us hanging out, you are already a part of our Beautiful Brown Girl family. Go ahead and type "Hey Beautiful" in the comments. And again, if this is your first time, go ahead and type "first time" in the comments. So let me shout out a few people. We have Monica here with us tonight. Irma is here. Is this Tala is here. We have Sabrina here from North Carolina. We have Karen, hey girl, hey, from Tacoma, Washington. Taraya or Taria, if you'll spell it for me in the chat, please, so that I don't butcher your name. But first timer, welcome from Tampa Bay, Florida. That is my old stomping ground. So shout out to you. Irma is here from Queens. She said she's here to learn more about handling mental health issues that women face. Tala says she's here from Buffalo, New York. Let's see. Oh, Monica's first time from Orlando. Kenya is tuning in from LBC. What's LBC, Kenya? Is that like Long Beach? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. I don't know that acronym there. We have Cherry here. Cherry, I ain't seen you in a minute, from Bellevue, Illinois. We have Tamika here from Clarksville, Tennessee, supporting her friend Unetta. Honey, she is ready. Okay, so thank you for being here to support. We have Marette is here. Nikki is here, first timer from Asheville, North Carolina. Looking forward to the discussion. She's tagging her friends to come in. Tamika from VA. Alice from Cleveland. Tamika, this is her first time. Welcome. Donna from St. Louis. Alicia, first time from Mississippi. Oh my gosh, y'all are getting in here too fast. Hold on. Donna, first timer as well. Who else do we have? Kim out of Orlando. Taria, like Maria, I got you, love. Thank you for that. Peggy is here from Gardenia, California. Let's see, who else? We have Betsy is here for the first time from Houston, Texas. And Sean is checking in. So welcome, y'all. So excited that you are here. We are going to have an amazing time. Okay, so if you have not already introduced yourself in the comments, go ahead and do that. Let us know where you are watching from. If this is your first time, let me know that as well. I do always give first time spirit fingers. So this is for all my first timers. And spirit fingers for you. Thank you for joining us. This is going to be an amazing time. Now, I need y'all to get something to take notes with. So if that's your phone, if that is a notebook, like whatever that might be, get something to take notes with. So definitely want to let you all know what you are watching, right? Because that's really important. And especially for all of our first timers, we need you to know that. So welcome to Beautiful Brown Girls TV. Again, this is a special episode for us. This is our Brown Girl Mental Health panel. This is the first panel that we're doing this year, but we are going to have a few more throughout the year. What we know is that conversations surrounding mental health issues have been subjected to a lot of stigma in our communities, especially in our Black and Brown communities. But people are really needing, right, to have these conversations. But along with that comes a lot of shame or challenges when discussing mental health. So what we want to do is destigmatize these conversations. We want to normalize these conversations. We want to be able to have these conversations freely so that we are able to support each other. So it's time for our communities to really make the best of this time so that we can access our very best lives. So a part of living that best life is to prioritize our minds, implement self-care, and talk about things like mental health, grief, loss, trauma, like all of the things that we go through as Black and Brown women. So if that's you, that resonated with you, you are in the right place tonight. Okay. So one of the things that I also wanted to share with you all is the mission of Beautiful Brown Girls, especially for all of our first timers. You may not be familiar with what we're about. So here we are about sisterhood, support, and self-care. We want to create authentic friendships, swap stories, experiences, and really embrace love, inspiration, and acceptance. So that is why we're here today, and that's what we're going to foster. Now, you might be asking yourself, who is this chick that's in here talking to us? Well, hey, y'all. My name is Kimberland. And I am your host for Brown Girl Boss here tonight. I also have another show on BBG TV called Brown Conversations. It comes on every other Monday. I am an educational advocate. I'm a consultant. I am a podcaster, a blogger, a actor, a model. I be doing all kinds of stuff, y'all. But tonight, what's important is I'm your host for tonight. So super excited to be here with you all. We gonna have fun. All right. So having said all of that, let me tell you who we have with us, because I know that this time is going to fly and I don't want to belabor the time. So I'm going to tell you who we have. We're going to bring them up and we're going to go ahead and get started. So one of our specialists tonight is Cassandra Hill. She's a holistic wellness influencer, a life coach, best-selling author, and speaker. After overcoming systemic lupus with a self-developed regimen, Cassandra birthed Holistic Living Consulting. Her mission is to transform the health of Black women by renewing their mind, body, and soul, utilizing an all-natural approach. We also have with us tonight Danewa Denise. Danewa is a full-spectrum doula and holistic wellness practitioner specializing in herbalism, yoga, meditation, and mindfulness. She's passionate about helping women along their reproductive and wellness journeys. Throughout her career, she's supported dozens of women in various capacities by providing them with education and the tools needed to help regulate their nervous system, all while empowering them to trust their innate strengths as women. And then our last specialist tonight is Unetta Smith, and she is a thriving therapreneur. So that's a therapist plus entrepreneur. She's the CEO and founder of Springforth Counseling and Groundbreakers Coaching and Consulting. She's a licensed professional clinical counselor in the states of Tennessee, Kentucky, and Indiana, as well as a nationally certified counselor, clinical trauma specialist, and EMDR therapist-approved consultant. Unetta specializes in helping Black and Brown folks navigate childhood trauma that manifests in adulthood, okay? And you may have heard Unetta before on the Ricky Smiley Morning Show. She is on the Talk It Out segment, Talk It Out Tuesday segment on Ricky Smiley, and Unetta is a groundbreaker, stigma breaker, cycle breaker. Just, she is here to help us embrace everything about ourselves. So, community, let's welcome them over in the chat and let's get this party started. So let me get y'all up here. Hello, beautifuls.
Hey.
Hello. Looking good. So we clearly have this black and red thing going on that we did not plan, but I think there's something to it. Okay, so we just gonna flow with it and roll with it. All right.
Yes.
So let's kick this thing off. So we have some themes for tonight, and the first theme that we have is the theme of renewal. We have been in the midst of this global pandemonium for far too long now, right? And many of us have discovered that we are different on the other side of COVID, right? And we've learned some things about ourselves. So I really want to kind of talk about what that self awareness process looks like, or what transitions look like as we are really trying to wrap our minds around these new people that we are. So, Danewa, I'm going to throw it over to you. When you're thinking about renewal, what comes to your mind, or what types of things do you feel you want to share with the community about renewal?
When I think about renewal, especially as we're entering spring, it's easy to think about freshness. It's easy to think about like maybe having new intentions or new patterns, and just having the opportunity to do new things. So I like the fact that you brought up, this whole panorama, or whatever you called it, the panini press. We've been in it for a hot minute. But in this time where we've been by ourselves or been in our not normal, a lot of the things that we kind of identified with had were taken away in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of had to hibernate, and so to speak, in our winter, and figure out like what feels good now. So now that the world is sort of opening up again, I kind of feel like the freshness, the spring, the new, is really
Mm.
what I think about when we speak on renewal.
I like that analogy that you just used with hibernating and thinking about the winter season, like the actual winter season that we just left, but also this winter season of when we were stuck inside the houses, that we were hibernating. And now it's like that rebirthing period to that. I'm gonna throw this question up here to you, community, but we're gonna keep talking about this. Who are you now in comparison to who you were before COVID? So those of y'all, drop that into the chat for me. Renewal. Yanetta, Cassandra, what comes to your mind when you think about renewal?
I think for me, I think of giving birth, because you go through that process. The baby incubates for normally 9 months, and at the end, you birth a new creature. And that's the same way with us,
Mm,
especially when you think about COVID, because for most people, we're not used to being inside for an extended period of time, and it forced you to get real comfortable with yourself. So you probably
mm,
learned some things about yourself that you might not have been aware of because you were so busy, and now everything's opening back up and you're coming out as a new being, a new person.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. So listen, my practice is spring forth counseling. So I'm all for the spring, Spring is literally my middle name. That's my middle name. So I get excited when you talk about renewal and spring, because for me it represents change and newness and opportunity. And it's like a reminder for all of us, like you were everyone was describing, like the birth of a baby or the change in the season. It's a new, um, the trees are, bare, and then all of a sudden they're blooming, right? So it, to me, it's just a representation that it doesn't matter how dead something looks, or how dry something looks, or how lifeless something looks. There still may be life in it, right? And there's still the
mm,
opportunity to change and to grow and to evolve. So I love, 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 um, anything with a re in front of it most of the time.
mm.
It's a good thing. So I think
Yes.
about restoration and restoration and renewal, and I'm thinking about EMDR reprocessing. But it just is an opportunity to begin again, to start again.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I like, and I can appreciate that too, because I feel like COVID forced us to shut down and really figure out some things, right? And I asked the community, I said, who are you now in comparison to who you were before? And this concept of change and this word change keeps coming up, right? So Jennifer
Mhm.
says she was more lively. COVID was a bit of a downer because of the restrictions. Karen says she's more intentional and dreaming again. Dee says she's more open to change. Taria said, I'm still figuring out who this new me is since my usual ways of getting acclimated to a new area was upended. So she moved during the pandemic. I can totally relate, y'all. I moved twice times during the pandemic and trying to find community. Tamika said, I would say I was more busy and active, now not as active, but still productive in a different way. So what this is making me think about is I think it's easy for us to be like, okay, we changed, like, and yay, change is exciting. Change is not always exciting. And some of us struggle with change. So, what is a way that we can gracefully embrace change, so that we're not stuck, I guess, in the grieving process of all the things that we lost, right? But able to move forward in this new normal, this new existence that we have, and really accept that change. I don't know who wants to take that, but whoever's feeling like it's calling your name.
I think that it takes a level of surrendering and feeling like, each day can be different. Change is hard. Change is a day by day, moment by moment type of vibe. So, really surrendering in the idea that, okay, maybe today looks like this, but tomorrow I try this, and not trying to really, really have so much control over it,
Yeah.
That's so much easier said than done.
It's so much
Because
easier
many
said
of
than
us are
done.
control freaks, right? And I think that was one of the things with COVID. Like, I can say for me, I didn't go outside from March, like when COVID started. So maybe like March, April until like July. So it's like, we can say that's fine, but that feeling of not being able to be in control of whether I was going to get sick or I'm doing all the right things and everybody else might not be doing the right things, like it's easy to say.
It's very easy. It rolled off the
With
tongue. You
it.
saw how that just rolled, right?
Yeah, but I'm gonna need some actionable steps. So, what are some actionable things that we can do to really embrace change and not get so stressed out or overwhelmed by it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what first came since we're on the we still on the I think.
We on the re. We still on the
We
re.
on the still. What first came to mind for me is that different world episode, the relax, relate, release. You remember when Debbie Allen was relax, relate, right? Um, and I think what makes it hard to change is we're not relaxed, right? We can't relate, so change is different, and we have a hard time letting go of what's familiar.
Mm,
So with change comes unfamiliar spaces. With
mm,
change sometimes comes discomfort, and if we feel like it's uncomfortable, just naturally as humans, we don't like to be uncomfortable. We don't like
right.
to be in unfamiliar spaces. So it really
Mm,
takes us actually relaxing, right? And being able to find something about this change that we can relate to, something about this change that we can look forward to, something about this change that's going to be helpful for us, whether it's helping us grow or evolve in some way, and then being able to actually release the things that are behind us, knowing that we
mm,
can't take that into, sometimes we can't take old things into our new season. You know what I
right.
mean?
Mm.
So, yeah, that's what came up. Thank you, Debbie Allen,
Relax.
the world.
Right. Relax, relate, release. Okay. So everybody say that with me. Relax, relate, release. Okay. Um, so yeah, but no, I really appreciate that that moment to really center ourselves and think through this process of what this looks like. So let me ask y'all this. And Cassandra, I'm gonna come to you first. How do you feel like you have personally changed on the other side of COVID? So pre-COVID versus now. And I'm gonna ask all of y'all that. Okay.
Okay. I would say pre COVID, of course, I'm a speaker in addition to having my business. And so pre COVID, I was out way more, doing events. And now with so many things being virtual, I don't travel as much. However, what I found once I got comfortable to that change, I feel like I've grown so much more, my knowledge base, because I've taken advantage of the extra time. I read more and just hone in even more on my skill set. So I could say I've grown more just in my expertise. I can say I've learned relationships that no longer served me, because when you get real comfortable being by yourself and you have time to think and process, you realize some people was in your life and they was just tolerating you instead of celebrating you. And so now I have a space where there's a clean energy and I just feel so much better, and I'm able to just thrive not only in business and in the endeavors I do professionally, but even in the relationships I'm involved in, because I don't have space for that toxicity. So I think I've came out better on the other side of COVID, actually.
I can appreciate that. And we're gonna come back to that in a second. I'm over here taking notes because I want to come back to that in a moment. Danae, what about you?
Since COVID, I would say that I'm much more tender to myself. As a woman and as a mother. I was actually recently having a conversation with a friend where we kind of talked about in the motherhood aspect of how, when we were sick or when we weren't feeling well, we kind of mustered through, right? We didn't really let our kids take care of us because it's like, we're going to get it done, right? But in a sense, we were showing them that we lacked empathy for ourselves as a person, because when you're sick, you should take care of yourself and allow the people around you that love you to take care of you. So during this period of being inside, just like Cassandra said, I really had to sit with myself and kind of look at how I was loving myself, how I was treating myself. Was I doing the things that was making me happy? Was I doing things that I thought was fun, even if nobody else wanted to do it, So I would say I'm better since COVID. I know a lot of people, there's a lot of bad things, but I feel like I'm better with having a romanticized life with myself, just myself.
I love that. Yanetta?
Yeah, I'm really reflecting on this, and I feel like as a counselor, COVID didn't allow me to have a break. Like, I didn't take a break. So I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and we were kind of talking about some stuff, and I hit the gas during COVID, right? For me, when I had started, I had been working my practice for a while, but I went full time right prior to the pandemic. So I know it was strategic, because had the pandemic hit, I would not have left my full time job. I was in my practice part time. So I went in full time private practice. Then the pandemic hit. So for me, COVID kind of put me in survival mode. Right. I am on a full-time entrepreneur, and we're in this global pandemic. And it wasn't after until things started settling down that I realized, girl, you ain't really had a break for real.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because everyone else is dealing with their things and, needing to run my business and stuff. So I think for me, the positive part of COVID is it allowed me to see what was actually in me in terms of my ability to be self-sufficient and to run my business and have a thriving practice, and ideas, came because I had to survive. The
Mm-hmm.
bad part about it was, um, it put me into survival mode, in terms of
Mm.
bringing up some of those like old traumas of being afraid of not being able to make it. So
Yes.
right now I feel like I'm in a season now where I'm learning how to like dial back and, like let myself know, girl, you okay? It's okay.
Right.
Like you can go ahead and have several seats and sit down and rest because you have you've made it through that period. So it kind of had a dual approach for me.
Mm-hmm.
The survival mode let me know, but just being aware that okay, now I need to come out of that. Like you got
Yeah.
in there. So that's kind of how it changed, me.
And I can say I totally relate to almost all of what you all said. I felt
Mhm.
very divided. Like I felt like I was like different people almost in my
Mhm.
head, right? So there were parts of me that was like, okay, well now you need to sit your behind down and like just sit down somewhere, right? But then there were other parts of me where I was like, I feel like I need to be doing something. Like I have all this
Mhm.
time, like do something, right?
Mhm.
But then ultimately I kind of landed where Danewa was talking about was spending time with me and
Mhm.
really trying to figure out what I needed and what that looks like to really be able to pour into myself and be okay with that. And one of the things that I discovered during that time was my need for rest. Like
Mhm.
I grew up in a house where the sun was up, you got to be outside, you got to do the things, like ain't nobody taking no nap, ain't nobody sleeping, like get up, get out, do something, right? So what would happen is my body was so tired or my mind was tired, so now I'm sitting in bed and I'm beating myself up because I can't get my life together. So I'm
Mhm.
like, what is wrong with me? Like, why can't I wake up? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? And it turned out to be like a very toxic and discouraging type of interaction. So, what I wonder is what does it look like when we're talking about how to actually rest and actually, like you said, relax, relate, release? The first thing is relax.
Mhm.
How? Like, how do we get to this point where we are able to say, I'm going to sit for a moment and actually rest? Like, what does that look like and sound like? Cassandra, why don't you kick us off with that?
Sure. I would say rest is stimulating your mind, your body, and your soul. Oftentimes, we think rest is sitting on the couch and just doing nothing. That's not really putting fuel back into your body. So, your rest is something that you're doing that's going to refuel you. Energies, whether it's aromatherapy, that's something I highly recommend to people, whether you're doing essential oils like lavender, peppermint, yang yang, just those essential oils that's gonna get you in a calmer place, but doing something that's going to stimulate your body. That's
Mm-hmm.
what rest really is. It requires you refueling yourself in some shape, form, or
Mm.
fashion. Rest might even be doing yoga or
Mm-hmm.
Zumba. It doesn't necessarily mean, sometimes it may mean laying down, that possibly, but for most people, it's doing something that's going to stimulate your mind, your body, and your soul. So you actually walk away feeling refreshed. Since we're on this
Yeah.
thing, you feel refreshed inside and outside.
Mm. So I think I am wondering, So we had a guest on. I have a few thoughts. Sorry, my brain was kind of like going in seven directions. So we had a guest on from the Self Care Suite, and she was talking about different types of rest. So she talked about physical rest, which go take a nap, go lay down, go sit down somewhere. But then there's also mental rest, emotional rest, spiritual rest, creative rest, social rest, sensory rest, right? And I remember when she was talking, I was thinking to myself, I feel like I need all this. Like I need all of these pieces of rest, right? But it made me really ask myself, what do I need to feel rested and at peace? And when I really started in community, I'm asking that question to you as well. Like, what do you actually need to feel like you are rested? So for me, one of the things that makes me feel rested, for instance, is allowing my mind to go wherever my mind wants to go. I spend a lot of time, or I have spent, I don't do it so much anymore, but I would spend a lot of time trying to make myself focus. I'm like, girl, we got to do the things, like get over here and write this, do that, blah, 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 whatever. So I felt like I was always fighting with the people that are in my brain who like control my brain. Like I felt like I was always fighting with my brain people to like, come on, y'all, corral. Like, I need you to like get this done. So what I started doing is not doing that and just allowing my mind to go wherever, right? So there are like times where I'll just be like, if I am thinking to myself, oh, I want to design my website, then I might get into thinking about different color schemes. So now I'm on Pinterest. Then I might go from Pinterest and be like, I should organize my closet. So now I'm organizing the closet. Like, but just allowing my mind to go wherever it goes so that I don't feel like I'm fighting against myself. So I'm wondering about this concept of like, how do we discover what we need to feel rested and what we need to be at peace?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say it comes from, like we mentioned earlier, I think Deanna brought up a great point, sitting with yourself, because once you get comfortable with you, you know what you need. No one, no person walking the earth, my fellow panelists, they're boss women, they're doing great things, but no one knows you better than you. So when you sit and get comfortable with yourself, you know whether or not, as you mentioned, for some people, it might be that physical rest where you take a power nap, keep moving. For some, it might be that mental rest where earlier I mentioned, doing the aromatherapy or yoga or whatever. But once you sit with yourself, you know what you need.
Yeah. I agree with that. I feel like rest is alignment, right? And that mindfulness. And a lot of times I look at like rest and taking care of ourselves is similar to how you would care for like an infant. And you know how sometimes it takes some time to figure out, well, what's wrong with you? You're tired, you're hungry, you fussy, you need a nap, you need to burp. What is it?
Right.
And then you may have to go through all of those things, a few times until you figure out what you need. But once you kind of build that relationship and the cry, of the infant, the cry of yourself, you know exactly what you need, like, because you spent time with yourself. Like, I know, girl, you need to get somewhere and lay down, or no, you need to get out and walk or exercise, or you need to go out in nature and ground yourself, So I feel like rest is really being present and being aligned and knowing exactly what you need when you need it, and giving yourself permission to give yourself what you need when you need it. Right. And not subscribing to the chatter. Like Kimberly, you said, because you were raised in an environment where it was lazy to not be up when the sun was up or always be moving, sometimes that interferes with our ability to rest because we're hearing that internal message that you always need to be up doing something.
Right.
And that's the case. So I think rest is really just being aligned with what you need when you need it and giving yourself
Mm.
permission to give it to yourself.
I like this concept of giving permission, and it's something I talk about all the time because I feel like, especially as Black women, that we are not given permission to take off the cape, right? So like when we were trying to figure out like how do we want to talk to people about this, like take off the superwoman cape. I'm over it. Like take it,
Mhm.
have it, throw it away, like do something else with it, right?
Learn
But
it.
it's like we seldom get that opportunity because we're the glue that's holding so much together and really trying to make sure everybody else is okay. And then here we are, like, well, I guess I don't get to rest because now I got to handle things and be an adult and be responsible and all of that. So I'm wondering about if you all have any suggestions for types of routines, maybe that people can start to implement, or so like when you were talking, Unetta, I was thinking to myself, that might be a powerful experience to journal, like actually asking myself what I need, right? So I know I need water to be near so that I can watch the water and just kind of be peaceful. I'm not getting in it. I just want to
Mhm.
see it, right? So it could be a lake, it could be a brook, it could be a stream. Like I don't care. I just need to be able to see it. But I had to like sit with myself and actually have this conversation to say what do I need. So I'm wondering about routines. Like what types of suggestions do you all have for different routines or different activities that people can do so that they are able to identify what makes them feel rested and at peace?
One thing that I would love to add for that, Kimber, actually, Kimberlyn. I don't know why I left the last part of your name
It's
off. I'm
okay.
so sorry. But one thing that I would love to add to that, as far as the routines go, when you said that you just allow your mind to wander without stopping it,
Mm,
I'm a former person that used to spend every minute of her day, like every last bit of it was spent. The days owed me nothing because I would be so stretched and booked. So,
mm,
a routine that I started to do was just to go out and walk. Like, it still gave me the feeling that I was doing something because I'm not in
mm-hmm,
my, because that was part of the thing. Like, oh, I don't want to be in here. I'm stir crazy. I have to be doing something.
mm-hmm.
Literally going out for a walk, did a bunch of things. Being in nature grounded me. It also gave me time to think. Like, I have my best ideas on walks. It
Mhm.
also gave me a time to talk to spirit, talk to whoever I wanted to talk to my grandma if that's who I wanted to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Just walks in general, especially as it's getting nicer, is a real stable routine for me because that does help me feel rested. I feel good when I come in from a walk, no matter
Mm,
how long. Even if I have 5 minutes, I always
mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I love that.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
else?
That's
Yeah.
part of my routine. I love a nap. I take a nap in a minute. And I don't need like power naps. In 15 minutes, like it will completely restore and refresh my day. My family and my friends make fun of me all the time because I can go to sleep like this, but restorative for me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
carving times out to do that and building it in my schedule. So it's not like, oh, if somebody cancels, then I will grab a nap. No, let me carve that in my schedule so that I know, regardless, like making it a priority, that this is something I like to do. This is something I
Mm.
know helps reset my day. So let me put it in there as a priority and not wait for somebody to give me an opportunity to take one.
Right.
Take a nap. I'm gonna take it.
So
right.
you
I
actually
love
like
that.
schedule it on your calendar?
Hmm.
Look, that goes back to the permission you were talking about earlier. Like, she's literally carving out the time to give herself permission to do what she knows restores her.
Yep.
I
Yes.
love that. I might schedule myself a nap.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm sitting here thinking to myself. like I love naps. Like I will go to sleep, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it hasn't really necessarily been directed by me. It
Mm-hmm.
has been like, oh, I don't have any meetings right now, so let me go ahead and take a nap, as opposed to I'm going to take a nap at 1:30 and I'm
Yeah.
not available during this time.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Hmm.
like take a nap, take a break, right? It's not I'm
Mm.
giving you a break. It's something we have to learn how to take.
Yeah.
Like regardless of what's going on, I know we've all probably had those jobs where it's like, I'm about to take my break because
Yeah.
y'all keep working me. I don't,
Right,
so
right.
my break is at this time and I'm going to take my break regardless of what's going on or how fast, busy we are right now. This is my time for my break. So I think taking that authority, over our rest, is
Mm.
important.
Yeah.
I love
That's
that.
I
good.
I know one thing I've done after the pandemic and everything and getting back to the new normal. With my calendar now, I only coach 3 days a week. Mondays and Fridays are my days. It's time for me to refresh, renew. I love writing. Some of y'all may recognize my name because I blog for BBG. But
Hmm.
that's my time. I write, whether it's for that or just writing whatever's on my mind. It's really cathartic for me. And at first, as an entrepreneur, you think, well, I can't take like 2 days off every week. Are you serious? But it's like, yes, give yourself permission. No
Hmm.
one, you don't need permission from anyone but
Hmm.
yourself. So give it to yourself and whatever you want to do. Like you said, just do it.
Right. I'm here for this. So if you all were looking for permission, okay,
This is
take
it.
your nap, take a walk. Like we are hereby giving you permission to give yourself permission, okay, to take care of yourself. I love Jennifer's comment here. She said people have been taking smoke breaks for years with no question, and
Ooh.
naps fit into the notion of smoke break. And you know what? I
Mhm.
remember one time I was reading something and they were talking about how many hours smoke breaks add up to. And those of us who don't smoke, we still sitting there working. Child, let me go sit in this car and take a nap right quick.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. So, y'all, take your rest, take your naps, give yourself permission to do that. However, I also recognize all of this is so much easier said than done, right?
Yes.
And I feel like one of the things that comes up often in our community when we're talking about stuff like this, we're just like, oh, just go take a nap or oh, just go take a walk or whatever. Is again back to this concept of being a superwoman. People feel like they're pulled in a lot of different directions. Right.
Mhm.
So I got to do this, I got to do that, and some of it is self imposed, some of it is from other people. So boundaries continue to come up over and over again. What are they? How do I create them? Like, how do I manage this life and create this life in a way so that I can honor the fact that I need rest. So I can honor the fact that I want to be able to renew myself, but I'm being pulled. I'm being pulled. I'm being pulled. So when we talk about boundaries, the first thing I would like to ask, what are they? Like, what does that mean to you? But then how do we do them?
Yeah, yeah. How do we do them?
How
How?
do we make this happen? Okay.
Good question. Like, how do I say no? We all know how to say no, right? We can utter those words, but the how behind it, makes it very complex. So I simply, describe boundaries is where you end and I begin. And sometimes the reasons why it is difficult to set boundaries is because a lot of us were raised in situations or we are in codependent relationships. So there
Mm-hmm.
is no place where I see myself ending and you beginning because
Mm-hmm.
everything is so enmeshed and entangled that there, where you go, I go. You make me feel this way, I make you feel that way. So there's no separation, or there's no dividing of you as a whole person. We are so connected with the people around us that it impacts our ability to just say no or decide what we want to do or have or be. So I think that's what makes boundaries very difficult, because our relationships are very codependent, and it's difficult to say what you want without saying, is that what you want to, or is that going to be okay with you? You know
And
what I
that's
mean?
what I was going to ask you. When we say like that we're codependent, how do I know? Like, how do I recognize? I mean, like, oh, this is a codependent action that I'm doing. Like, how do we know that?
Yeah. So it's when I can't necessarily make a single isolated decision, where my decisions and my wants and my needs are directly attached to someone else, right? Where it's kind of gauging the room and gauging the situation to decide what it is that I really want. So somebody who struggles with codependency has a really hard time identifying what they need, right? Because they're very conditioned to meet the needs of others and make other people's needs a priority over theirs. So they may be very, like easygoing. They may seem easygoing. People like to be around them, right? Because they don't say no, and they're like, well, what do you want to do? Well, what do you want to eat? Well, it's up to you. What do you want? That type.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Like, I need you to make a decision. So that could be a boundary issue.
Absolutely.
Because you're dependent on the other person to give you some type of clue about how you're going to move or how you're going to behave or what have you.
Yeah. So it's very difficult to say no, because what if that person does not agree with your no or respect your no? I'm so used to complying that it's difficult and it's uncomfortable to be in a space where I resist.
Just letting that sit for a moment, because this is resonating with a few people. So before we add on to that, Danewa or Cassandra, when you hear Cassandra, I'm sorry, I keep saying Cassandra, when you hear boundaries, what does that mean to you?
To me, I really feel like it is a way to how people should treat you, essentially. It's like a guide for what works for you and what doesn't. That can be tricky because we don't know what works for us until it happens. We don't know that's a lot of times we don't realize a boundary has been crossed until it really happens. So I feel like that's a little bit of a hardness when it comes to setting boundaries and teaching people how to talk to us and how to treat us and how to correspond with us.
Yeah. I would say for me is, like Danae stated, is learning how to guide someone on how to properly treat me, because the crazy thing about it, the relationships we have, whether there's personal or professional, we teach people how to treat us.
Right.
So it's just a matter of, okay, in this relationship, this is what I expect from you, and you let me know the same thing for yourself, and we either make a commitment to honor that or not. And I know for me, unfortunately, I learned this the hard way, not setting proper boundaries. And I did that for so many years that my body shut down. Literally, my body completely shut down. So now I'm an expert because I just don't tolerate certain things in my life anymore. But it's really, really important in relationships, whatever type relationship, that you have clear expectations. Because if it's not clear, it doesn't benefit you or the other person. Just
Right.
those clear guidelines of what you expect and mean it. When,
Yeah.
especially for us women, because sometimes we say that we want this and we really do want it, but then, people are going to test you just to
Mm-hmm.
see. They just want to see, does she really want me to do this? Is she, when she says don't text me after 9 and I wait to 9:10, we're
Mm-hmm.
testing
Mhm.
you just
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
see, is she gonna respond to me? I know
Yeah.
this is a quiet time. So when you set your expectations, stay firm with it. And those people who are meant to be in your circle and absorb your energy, they will respect that.
Yeah. So I want to dig a little bit deeper here. And there were two comments that kind of made me think about what happens. So Taria made a comment. She talked about moving across the country allowed her that physical distance allowed her to feel more confident with her boundaries. And Kenya also talked about moving miles away from her mom helped her to establish boundaries. Um, Yanetta, I know that you talk a lot about boundaries and what happens in our process of trying to set boundaries. Can you
Mhm.
talk to us about? I'm going to pull up the trauma cascade, but can you
Mhm.
talk to us about that process? Because I think that those of us who are great at boundaries now, right? We're like, yay, set your boundaries, like say the things, it's all good, right? But those of us who didn't grow up with boundaries and we grew up with people infringing on our boundaries, we grew up with not even knowing that boundaries were a thing.
Mhm.
It's hard, especially when we don't understand why we behave the way that we behave.
Mhm.
So if you can walk us through, and hopefully community, you all can see this, kind of zoom in on your screen or whatnot so that you're able to see this graphic, but can you walk us through this trauma cascade?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So this is something I created. The trauma cascade is essentially something that we use to explain the process of what happens when you encounter some sort of threat or something dangerous, or you experience some sort of trauma, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what I found in my work with people who have boundaries, that what makes it so difficult to say no is the fact that you are being activated, right? And when I say activated, I mean you are like, it's a trauma response, right? That the way your brain interprets saying no, in your brain, it's interpreting it as dangerous, right? Whether it's a fear of people leaving, some abandonment wound or issue, or whether it's a fear of being the bad person, or not being connected, not belonging, feeling like you failed in some way, or feeling like you don't measure up or you're not good enough, right? So it could be multiple reasons why you are afraid to say no, but essentially, when we have a challenge with saying no, it's based in fear.
Mm.
Right. So I think the big thing is to identify, what am I afraid of happening if I say no? Right. So
I'm about to put that in here because that was a tweetable. So
yeah,
when we have a challenge with saying no, is based in fear.
it's based in fear. It's all based in fear. And we may say,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not scared of nobody, or I ain't scared. I can say, I just know there is a fear, whether it may not be a fear that somebody else will do something to you, but it may be an internal fear that you have about yourself, you know, um,
Mm-hmm.
that affects your ability to say no. So the first thing we're always looking for, and I say this all the time, is our body wants to feel stable. It wants to feel rested. It wants to feel at peace. And anything that disrupts that is going to create an issue for us, right? So the first question we ask ourselves is, do I feel safe to set this boundary? We all know people we feel safe to set boundaries with, hopefully. And it's that person you could tell no easily. And it's like no, and you just keep it moving, right? There's no extra thought about it. If you
Mm-hmm.
feel safe set the boundary, you're going to set the boundary, your body's going to stabilize, and you're good. If you don't feel safe, then your body kind of goes through this cycle of fighting it. So can I fight setting this boundary? So it's looking at the situation, it's looking at your opponent. Like, is this person going to let me set a boundary with them? Are they going to create an issue? If not, then if we feel safe to set it, we're going to fight it, right? To set that boundary. If we don't feel safe, then we are going to flight. Right. So we're going to run away from setting that boundary. And we all know what running away from setting a boundary looks like. Right. We ducking and dodging people, we're avoiding. Right. And when we avoid, then now we feel stabilized. Right. We feel safe because I've dodged that bullet. I didn't have to tell them no, and it's gone and I feel safe. Right. So if you feel safe to do that, you'll do that. You'll flight. If not, then the next one is freeze, right? So I'll try to be real quiet and still and hope that they go away, hope that the request goes away, right? And all of it is in efforts to feel stable, to get over to recovery, where our body can settle and stabilize and we can rebalance, right? So if freezing and we freeze, everything's all good. We didn't have to set the boundary and we're moving on. If freezing doesn't create safety for you, then the next one is flop. So flop is I'll play dead, I'll play inadequate, I'll flop and I'll get through it. So that's when you say, well, I ain't really too good at this, or I don't know, it might be somebody better for this, right? So you're kind of trying to present yourself as being unavailable or being inadequate or not being able to meet the need of that other person so that they just find somebody else. And you don't have to actually tell them no. They decide on their own that I don't want to use her for that, right? Or I don't want to ask her for that, right? So instead of saying no, you just flop and play dead so that they move on. But it's all to stabilize and not to set a boundary. And the last one is kind of where we find ourselves oftentimes, and that's when fight, flight, freeze, and flop doesn't work, then we turn to friend, right? So how can I stop this from happening again? I better just give in, keep them close, keep them happy, and be their friend. So that's when we accommodate people and we please them and we do whatever we need to do to keep them close because it helps us feel safe, but we avoid playing the boundary. We avoid the boundary. So knowing that all of this is just a way for your body's natural, like your body wanting to naturally stabilize, right? But if we felt stable from the jump, right? And if we could attack these beliefs that interfere with us setting boundaries, then we wouldn't have to go through this whole process of avoiding and flopping and befriending people. Like we can be safe and settled and sure in our no. But time, and oftentimes there is trauma that's connected to our inability to say no, right? And that may take processing with therapy or whatever the case may be. So this is really helpful for a lot of my clients to help them see, okay, I am freezing right now, or okay, flight mode, I'm avoiding setting this. So we talk about, well, why are you avoiding? What are you afraid of that's causing you to feel like you avoid this? So we can address the fear. When you address the fear, the boundary is easy.
I have a question for you. What percentage or what level do you think communication in general has in this this wonderful demonstration? Like I learned a lot from this. I like this. I would like a coffee. But what part of communication do you think falls in that? Like I understand that no is a sentence. No is absolutely a sentence. But sometimes we feel like we got to give explanation. And we feel like we got to say more, like I can't just tell such and such no, like I guess that can come into the play dead or like, the flop area. But what level of it do you think is just communication in general, where we don't know the words to say when no doesn't feel enough, even though no is enough? It's enough. But sometimes it just doesn't.
Feel like right. Yeah. And sometimes it's okay to explain depending on like who it is and what the situation is, right? But I think one thing about fear is when we get scared, I mean, I'm sure all of you have been what we call like test anxiety and things like that. When you are afraid, you are operating in a different space in your brain. So you don't have access to
Mm.
language and words and being able to formulate things eloquently because you're in a different part of your brain. That part of your brain can only fight, flight, freeze, flop, and
Mm.
friend. That's
Got
the only thing it knows how to do, right? So that's where that communication comes on the front end, right? We can address like how do we communicate these things, but then we also have to combine it with addressing the fear so that you can have access to the information that you have. But when you have a trauma response, it blocks that access.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh, good stuff.
Yeah.
And that was a good question, Danewa. I appreciate you asking that because, again, I think it's one thing to say in theory, right? This is how
Mhm.
we do this. It's something else to put it into action of these are the things that I say. So, to your question that you brought up too about when a person isn't accepting no. So I'm thinking of this from two sides because there are people who want to set boundaries, like they're actively working on it, right?
Mhm.
And let's say, for instance, one I was just talking to one of my friends about the other day, you're not drinking right now, right?
Mhm.
Your friends invite you out and you say they're like, oh, you want to have a shot with me, and you're like, I'm not drinking right now, and they're like, come on, like have it's just one shot, like come on, like have a shot with me, and you're like, I'm not drinking right now,
Mhm.
right? Oh my gosh, like you being so lame, like come on and have a drink, right? So, what would be the advice that you would give to the person who is not drinking, as well as the person who is like, come on, and insisting? Like, what would you
Mhm.
say to those two folks?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Can I take this one?
Go for it.
Because this is something I deal with on a regular basis. I'll give a disclaimer. I've been in remission with systemic lupus since 2016. With me being in remission, there are certain things I cannot, well, I could eat and drink, but I
Mm-hmm.
choose not
Mm-hmm.
to because I value my body. And so initially, you do get those people who's like, well, for me, because I don't drink any type of
Mm-hmm.
alcohol, soda, I'm pretty
Mm-hmm.
much like water, herbal teas, all this stuff. And at first, how I would do it, I would just say, well, no, I'm good. And then, sometimes people want to know, like why. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm just taking better care of my body, and let them know, hey, this is part of my health regimen now. And honestly, if a person didn't understand that, I'm like, forget it. Because really it's like you're basically not listening to my voice. And if you don't care enough about me to listen to my voice and what I want, guess what? I don't want to go out and have a drink with you or have dinner with you if you're going to force me to, if I tell you, okay, now I don't eat pork. Okay, the secret's out. So if you invite me to this barbecue place and all I got is pork, I know you're just being insensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I deal with it. I let them know, like, this is my reason, accept it or do.
Deuces.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, but well, I'm not sorry. It is what it is.
Sorry, not sorry.
No,
So,
I feel that. I totally feel that. And I think something that you said, Cassandra, that's resonating with me is if I am trying to set a boundary and you are not respecting that boundary, you're not respecting me
yeah.
and you're not respecting my voice. right? So, in all this
Mhm.
time that we've been talking about what it looks like for me to renew myself, renew my mind, to really think about rest and creating that space for myself, a lot of that is in honoring me. So if you're not honoring me, are you really the type of person that I want to be in fellowship with right now
Mm.
because you're not honoring what I'm saying to you?
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Bless you.
thank you. I'm having allergy situation over here trying to get my life together. But thank you. So then to the other side of that, I think to the people who may not realize that they are infringing on others' boundaries, right? Because I was one of those people. I didn't find out about boundaries until I was at least 30. I went to my therapist and I was just feeling so burnt out, so tired, pulled in so many different directions. And my therapist was like, you need to, you have a sign over your head that says, if something is broken, Kimberlyn will fix it. And I was
Mhm.
like, we got to turn this sign off, sis. Like, I don't like, right? But I had never heard of the concept of boundaries. So, in me discovering that I had the right to set boundaries, I also discovered that I was infringing on other people's boundaries because I was
Mhm.
the type where I was like, you need to tell me why. Like, don't just be sitting up here telling me you ain't coming or you ain't doing why, right? No is
Same.
not a complete sentence to me.
Mhm.
But then when I was empowered to understand that I had the right to say
Mhm.
no and no be a complete sentence, then I realized I needed to give other people that right as well. So to
Mhm.
those of us who may be sitting here like, if I can't say amen, say ouch, I've been infringing on other people's boundaries. I think the power in that is empowering yourself to understand that you've probably been allowing people to infringe on your boundaries as well. So go ahead and set your boundaries and now recognize when others are trying to set their boundaries too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Absolutely, absolutely. That person that has a problem with someone else's boundaries in most cases is not doing a really good job of setting them themselves, right? Because they don't
Hmm.
understand the concept, and
Hmm.
sometimes there's that resentment. Well, when people call me, I answer, or when people need something from me, I give it. So it's like, what gives you the right to do
Right.
something that I can't do? Right? And not realize
Hmm.
that you can do it as well, but you just haven't tapped into that authority or that agency, that personal agency that you have. So sometimes that is the case that, sometimes we have a warped sense of what love looks like and what
Mm.
love is and what love does. And we think that
Mm.
it's just so sacrificial and giving and all of these things. And when people say no, it sometimes it feels like you don't love me,
Hmm.
if
Hmm.
or we have that warped sense of interpreting love as always meaning yes.
Mm.
And someone
Ooh.
might have a hard time with setting boundaries like with their children,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
kind of thinking about, no, I'm telling you no, and I'm setting this rule because I do love you and I want you to
Hmm.
be safe. Boundaries keep us safe. Boundaries help protect us. They're necessary. And if you have a relationship without boundaries, you most likely have a relationship that's not safe.
Mm. So this is feeling full circle for me because when we talk about the things that we need to feel at rest and the things that we need to feel peaceful, a part of that is that safety. And if I
Hmm.
can't feel safe in this relationship, then I can't take my cape off. I can't let my guard down because
Absolutely.
I got to watch my own back because I know that you might not have my best interest at heart.
Hmm.
I wanted to bring Jennifer made a comment in here, and she talked about a situation that she had at work. She said she decreased her interaction with a coworker based on the way that she had been speaking to her, and she noticed and started to do things to try and engage with her in conversation, like lying in meetings. She said it's
Mm.
pointless to have a conversation with her because she's just going to focus on her feelings and not take responsibility for her actions. How do we deal with people who are gaslighting? Or acting as if we don't have the right to set these boundaries. So they continue to antagonize, or they continue doing what they're doing. How do we set a firmer boundary, or what do we say, like actually say out of our mouths to deal with somebody like Jennifer's coworker?
Hmm. Yeah, when you say how do we deal with, I was like, we don't, but reality.
Listen, I was gonna say the same thing. She already doing it.
You know, it's a work environment. So sometimes we don't have that option to just, I'm not going to deal with you. Right. Or if it's somebody you have like a connection with, you sometimes, some people you have to deal with to some degree, but you may need to change how you deal with them. Right. So it sounds like she's already making some changes in how she deals with her. But I think it's being very literal and very clear about what they're doing, when they're doing it, right? And being very upfront with it. Sometimes we tend to like let things pile up or let things slide. So when someone says something, letting them know that was, I feel offended, or I feel hurt by you saying XYZ, or asking them, well, what do you mean when you say that? Sometimes asking somebody, explain to me what you meant when you said that, you know, and that can cut out a lot of BS sometimes that people try to throw at you. But yeah, I think it's knowing that I have to change how I deal with this person and kind of shift my expectations that I may have had for them, and be very clear and very literal about what you want, what you need, what you don't like, what you want for them to stop doing. I need to stop, what came up, but I'm not even gonna go there.
I, 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 I think when
Okay,
I
but yeah.
I feel like in a sense you have to also be a little bit clear of what you're wanting to get out of your exact words. Like you definitely have to be clear what you're going to say, but in a sense you need to know what your end result, like are you allowing them to fix whatever they've done in this situation? Like am I going to chat with you more after I told you I don't like when you say that? If you fix it, am I going to now be your friend?
Mhm.
So I feel like there has to be a little bit of clarity before you say something of what it is that you want the outcome to potentially look like, because we don't know what the outcome's going to be.
Right.
Like you said, people throw any and everything at you, and I was right there with you. Like she was already doing that. I will ignore you and never say another word.
And I would say, would it be in a work situation too? Communicate through email as much as possible. And that way you have a paper trail, you have documentation. We live in a virtual world now. There's more ways to communicate besides verbal. And doing it through email might serve you in a way to where if this person is using language that's abusive to you and it gets to a point to where HR needs to get involved, you have your documentation.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I feel that too. I was over here like per my last email.
Right.
No, I totally feel that. So hopefully that helps, Jennifer. Holly and I want to say a couple other folks have mentioned like they've had to end friendships over this type of issue. Me too. Because those, again, when I think about what I need, right, and all of this is about really tuning into that self-awareness and really thinking about what is happening inside of us. When I think about someone that I consider a friend, like I don't want to have to keep talking to you about infringing upon my boundaries. Like we're not going to keep having this conversation, not if you're my friend, right? So sometimes it may get to the point where we do have to end that relationship, and then we go forth, we're cordial, what have you, but we may have to make those shifts. Something else I was wondering about is the types of things that we feel in our bodies, because I think sometimes when we're just learning about boundaries, we don't know that our boundary is necessarily being infringed upon early enough. Like it gets to the point now I'm seeing red. Now I'm ready to flip the table, right? So thinking about some of those early signs that might happen that lets helps me know inside my body that something is not right with this communication. So like for me, I know that my voice gets scratchy and my ears get hot. And when that happens, I know for me, something, I need to take a moment. I need to assess, like, I need to see what's going on because I don't feel safe in this moment. So I think also paying attention to what's actually happening physically in these situations so that you don't have to be neck deep in the situation before doing something about
Yeah. Yeah.
For me,
That's true.
oh, go ahead, Cassandra.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say for me, when I'm interacting in situations where I feel like it's tougher boundaries, I start to feel anxiety before communicating with those people that I know where I have to work. We know those people you gotta work really hard to like enforce those boundaries. I feel anxiety and I just start to like my hands start to sweat. Like you notice the little things, like the little tension in the shoulders, like, oh, I'm gonna go see that person. So I think those little signs for me is what comes up for me.
Yeah. And even the way you breathe, if you pay attention to how you breathe, oh my goodness. Because I know for me, sometimes you might have to interact with a person that you care not to interact with, and you notice just a tinge of an increased heart rate. It's not like you're about to have a heart attack or anything, but you just notice like that extra in your body. And your body is letting you know that it's preparing itself for a slightly stressful situation.
So then that makes me think about coming back to the trauma cascade, right? So thinking about how if I pay attention to what's happening, I can notice when I'm in fight, when I'm in flight, when I'm in freeze, right? Because I'm actually paying attention to what's happening within me and within my body, right? So I really, I urge those of you who are here hanging out with us to really tap in and tune in to what's happening, not just in our minds, but also in our physical space, because our body is giving us indicators about what is happening. Likewise, I also feel like some of us are programmed to dismiss that. And it's something about, we talked about permission earlier, and one of the last things I want to unpack, and we're probably gonna wind up having a part 2 for this because it's a lot, but giving ourselves permission to actually feel feelings instead of dismissing the feelings and feeling like we're overreacting or maybe not trusting our gut. What advice do you have about how we can allow ourselves to trust that what I am feeling right now means I need to take action, or I'm not safe, or I am safe? Like maybe I feel great and I need to know that that's a safe place. How do we unlearn the programming of you don't get to feel? How do we deal with that?
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. It's so good. And it's one thing I always look at for our body is that our body is designed to naturally protect us, right? To keep us alive and well and safe. And in most cases, it's always working in our favor, for our best, for us to be our best self or whatever the case may be. So giving yourself permission to feel kind of takes me back to like that alignment of really being able to be mindful and to checking in with what's going on in your body, and knowing that if something is happening, if there is an alarm going off, right? If your sympathetic nervous system, which is that fight, flight, freeze, if that gets activated, there is something within your body trying to tell you something, right? Your body and your brain is in constant communication all the time, right? So giving yourself a moment to say, what are you trying to tell me, body?
Right.
What information are you trying to offer me? And in process, is this valid? Is it helpful? Do I need to adhere to this? Or, what do I need to do with this information? But like you said, sometimes when we feel things, we're conditioned to suppress. You crying, suck it up. those tears, wipe them away, right? We're conditioned to do that for several reasons. We can go down the historical and the impact of, oppression and slavery and how that is in our DNA to suppress for survival, right? So it's us knowing that that's not how we need to survive now. Like it may have been how we survived then, but now we need to feel to survive. Like that's where we are in our life now.
You know what I appreciate about what you just said is the grace that we can give ourselves in that may have been useful for me in a previous situation, previous condition.
Right.
However, it no longer serves me right now. So now I'm going to make a different choice because I feel like a lot of times I'll use I statements. I will say things to myself like, you're overreacting, or why you always do this, or like get yourself together. Why are you like this type of thing, as opposed to just being like, okay, I was like that for a reason. I did these particular things because I needed to do those things in order to survive. Now that I am safe, I no longer have to do those things and they are no longer serving me. So I get to choose a different way to exist.
I think there's a level of trust there too, though, self-trust. So I definitely feel like it has to be a part too. But I think that there's a level of self-trust because sometimes we make decisions based on the information we have because we can't see in the beginning, we can only see behind us, right? So we make those decisions, and if those decisions turn out sour for whatever reason, we start to distrust ourselves. We start to distrust the feelings that we have. So I feel like the permission to feel, you have to sort of build your self-trust that I can trust that I have the capacity to feel whatever it is. If it's complete sadness, I have that capacity to feel it. If it's happiness, I give myself permission to be happy. I deserve that. So there's a lot. Ooh, that's a good one. That's such a good one.
That's real good. I love it. That's good.
Yeah. And then also, when you think about our community, being that strong Black woman, and are we that? Yes, but let's redefine what being a strong Black woman means. Because when I'm a strong Black woman, one, I unapologetically love myself. And with me loving me, I allow myself to experience whatever type of feeling, emotion that I want to feel. I love myself enough and I value myself enough to where I'm going to do that. And I'm going to have people in my circle who don't hinder that.
Yeah, it takes strength to be vulnerable.
Yes.
It does.
Yes.
It does. It really does. And I think that may be where we pick up on our next mental health panel, because this is something I've personally been working on, like giving myself permission to feel, because I would feel like my feelings are going to be so all consuming that it would never end. Like if I allow myself to be sad in this moment, I'm going to be sad forever. And what I learned is that it's not forever. Like feelings actually move through us.
Yes.
But because I wasn't allowed to feel as a child, I thought that if I did allow myself to feel those feelings, I wouldn't know how to come out of it. So it also reminds me, back to when you were talking about being based in fear, right? Having so much fear that, and Danae, lack of trust, that I can't trust myself to be able to do this and work through this and still function today or whatever. It's just like, the day is lost, So I really want, I think to think on how we can provide the community with some actionable steps of what that looks like in all of our feelings, because there are so many that we don't necessarily allow ourselves to experience. We did have a question. Kenya wanted to know just a little bit more clarification on family members, right? So we can't necessarily divorce from our families per se.
Mhm.
What do we do regarding family members who refuse to respect our boundaries?
Mm.
It's just like dealing with a child. You reinforce and reinforce and reinforce. I've had that experience with a family member, and when they cross that boundary, and I'm like, you know, this is not gonna work. And so you keep reinforcing. And my experience is most of the time, yes, will you have a relationship with your family member? Yes, you will continue to have that relationship, but I bet you what, they'll reach out to you less if you're, consistent with it. They're either going to reach out to you less or eventually be accepting of whatever boundary you're establishing.
Mhm. Yeah. One thing I always say is, I agree with that completely. That a boundary is only as strong as the consequence for crossing it.
Listen. I
Right.
love that.
So, what is that consequence for crossing that boundary? You can set it all day, but if you don't come with a consequence, and that depends on the person, the situation, but there's always a way to implement a consequence for crossing me. And if there's no consequence, then the boundary is invalid. It's just words.
Hmm.
It has to follow with something that happens if you cross that boundary.
Yeah. I can appreciate that. I can appreciate that because we don't want it to be empty.
Mhm,
So, even thinking about now that we are more aware, community, of boundaries and what that looks like, also thinking about what happens because Sandra, you said this at the beginning. You were like, they gonna test you.
mhm.
Okay. You done
Yep.
told them not to text you at 9, they texting at
You're
9,
like,
10. Like they
"59,
are
nope."
going to test you, right?
Mhm,
So thinking about what that consequence is going to be when, not if, when they test your boundary is a part of setting a boundary.
mhm,
Like, and I would say, as we're talking about honoring ourselves, putting yourself first in that situation and saying, this is something that I deserve. Like, I deserve for my boundary to be respected. And if you cannot respect that boundary, then we're going to have to make some shifts. As Cherry said, you might have to love them from a distance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You might have to go ahead on and hit that block button. Okay. Like, we may have to actually go through, like, know that you're going to have to go through with a consequence. So Kenya said yes, thank you. Never thought of implementing the consequence, so now that's something that all of us can think through.
mhm.
Ladies, our time is up.
You said
Yes,
it would
sir.
go by fast.
I told you.
You said it.
I told you it was going to fly by. But what I know is that our community has received some great nuggets. So, what I would like to do with our last few minutes is I would like for you to share one closing thought. Like, if they didn't hear nothing, you say it tonight. You want to leave them with this. And I would like for you to tell the community where they can find you after this. So let's start with you, Netta.
Okay. I just want to leave with everybody that it's okay to pause, right? Sometimes when we get in different situations, we have these knee-jerk reactions and we respond so quickly, and then we turn around and we're like, why did I say that? Why did I agree to that? Why did I do that? It's okay to just take some intentional pauses before responding, reacting, answering, agreeing. Just take a pause, just check in with yourself, seeing, does my whole body agree with what I'm about to say? Right? And if your whole body does not agree with what's happening, then it's a no, right? Then you don't have to proceed. You don't have to move forward with that. And it's okay to take time to think about the reason why for yourself later. but you don't always have to have the answer right now to justify your no.
Mm.
Sometimes that
Mhm.
takes time to figure it out, you know. So I want to leave y'all with that. It's always fun talking to y'all. It's always fun being connected with your community. It's beautiful women. You can reach me or find me on social media, Springforth Counseling, or Yanetta Spring on YouTube. And I got a TikTok that I'm playing around with. I'm figuring it out, but it's kind of
She
fun.
on the TikTok show.
I made it all the way through the pandemic without a TikTok and got one afterwards. So I got that now. I also have a self care strategy workbook. So you can find that. I think we can drop it in the chat, the link for it. I have the e-version. I'm getting it on Amazon, where you can kind of work through your self care. Um, and yeah, so that's what I got. I believe that's everything. But if you follow me, I'll put stuff out. I'm looking forward to connecting with each and every one of y'all.
Awesome. Danae, what would you like to leave with the community and where can they find you?
Okay, so I agree. It's always a pleasure talking to you, ladies. If I had to leave you with one thought tonight, it would definitely be to always lead with your heart space. It can feel like you have to make 1,000 decisions. You have to be pulled in all these other places in different directions. But if you're always leading with your heart and listening to your heart and taking the time to hear yourself, you're not going to make a bad decision for yourself. So lead with your heart. And then you can find me everywhere, at Danae Denise.
And Cassandra, oh my goodness. Cassandra, what would you like to leave with the community and where can they find you after this?
Sure. I'm going to leave with a quote by the late, great Maya Angelou. Anyone with the capacity to love should start with themselves. And you can find me at Live Healthy for Life. That's my handle on Instagram as well as Facebook for my company, Holistic Living Consulting, Live Healthy for Life. And the first person who messages me on Instagram and says BBG, the first woman who does that, I'm going to gift this book, Love Letters to My Girls. 100 plus Black women speak to the hearts and souls of Black women and girls. So the first person who does that on IG, you'll get this book. And as always, it's a pleasure being here. Love talking with you ladies.
Yes. So y'all got that? Okay. All of their IG handles are here on the screen. So definitely go over to those spaces so that you can connect. I am dropping the link right now for the resource Yunetta mentioned. There that is. Okay, so you can go there to be able to get your free resource, as well as I'm going to drop her link tree as well. So make sure that you all again go over to these spaces. Now, there were lots of you all who were new. Shout out to the first time. Shout out to Okay, so we want to make sure that you all are connected to us. We do stuff like this all the time here at Beautiful Brown Girls. We really are committed to making sure that we're living our very best lives. This is not just a catchphrase. Like, this is something that we truly believe and something that we truly live by. So I want to make sure that you all are connected to us on all of the places that matter. So if you go over to Beautiful Brown Girls, you will be able, beautifulbrowngirls.com, you'll be able to see our website. You can learn about all of our in-person brunch chapters that we have, as well as some of our other initiatives. Go onto Facebook, and like us at Beautiful Brown Girls, we also have a Facebook page, a Facebook group called Beautifully Shaded. Our Instagram is Beautifully Shaded and Twitter is Beautiful Brown You. We also have a VIP members network space, and this is our own Brown Girl social space where we get to leave all the algorithms behind and all the things trying to hold the brown girl down. Okay. And we have this space where we really get to connect with each other on a deeper level. If you go to members.beautifulbrowngirls.com, you will be able to find that space. The cost is only $25 for the entire year. It gives you discounts. It gives you early access to things. We have special classes. I'm talking makeup, cooking, book clubs, like all sorts of things, okay, are going on over in our members network. So if you have not had the opportunity yet to connect with us there, please do so. Also, want to alert you to the fact that we have another episode of Brown Girl Boss coming up next week. We're going to have Kelly Salney on. She is the Director of Strategic Partnerships for Camelback Ventures. And Kelly is very adamant about making sure that she is doing all that she can for Black women, Black entrepreneurs, and really positioning us to be successful. So go ahead and mark that on your calendar so that you can be there for that. Lastly, if you would like to connect with me, I'd appreciate it. You can find me over at KimberlyJackson.com. I also have a new brand called Minding My Black Ass Business. And there I've actually started doing affirmation videos and a playlist, a morning playlist. So for those of us who are trying to get our morning routines together and, you know, really make sure that we have all the things, I would love for you to come over and hang out with me there. So, having said all of that, ladies, I just want to thank you for taking the time to pour out into our community and really have this heartfelt conversation. Community, I want to ask you, what is something that you got out of this time that we've had here? If you'll go ahead and drop that into the comments for us so that we can just kind of solidify and put a bow on what that, at least one thing was that you got out of this. So if you'll go ahead and drop that into the chat for us, we'd appreciate that. The conversation does not stop here. After this, the replay is going to be up, so feel free to share the replay with others. You can continue to tag people. They'll see the broadcast, so go ahead and tag people still. You can share the broadcast on your page. Please keep this conversation going. This is incredibly important. We're going to work on what part 2 looks like in a couple months from now or so that we can really dive into this concept of feeling and really making sure that we are honoring ourselves and all the things that we need to do to show up as our best selves. So, ladies, I thank you so much.
This is amazing.
Yeah, it's been wonderful.
This is just exuding through. So hopefully this gave y'all a shot in the arm as well, to really be able to just appreciate that what you're putting out is being received and it's helping people. Definitely look through the comments. The ladies are dropping the things that resonated with them. So definitely look at that and check that out. And to our beautiful Brown Girl community, we will see you next week for our next episode of Brown Girl Boss. I want to thank you all for watching. Again, my name is Kimberlyn, and we'll see y'all soon. Bye, y'all.
Hi, everyone.